Okay, so hello, Jo. Welcome to our Thursday night. We're going to talk to you about your long, distinguished career within the functional fitness group. We'll also talk a little bit about your work that you do at the university, and then obviously your own personal coaching business as we go. So just before we started recording, we were talking about obviously more like your job and stuff at university. So how is that how is it looking in terms of going back to work and students coming back to normal? What's the script for you just now?
Yeah, so I for those that don't know, I work in student services at the University of St Andrews. I'm one of the assistant directors, and my title is Assistant Director of Wellbeing. So I manage the wellbeing team, and we were pretty well prepared for all this happening, actually. So we were able to move our service pretty much overnight from being a face-to-face service where students come in and see us for a whole range of issues to being able to move everything virtually online. All the technology was there, we just hadn't actually really used it much before. So we moved into the Microsoft Teams and have been using that ever since. And we've obviously been surveying students, and actually the majority of students are saying they either prefer it, or they don't care. They're ambivalent. They're like, yeah, it's fine, because I think a lot of our student demographic will be quite used to using this type of technology for Skyping friends, family, and all the rest of it. So having online counselling and support type conversations has actually been quite good for some of them. Some obviously prefer the face-to-face, and I think, you know, we will absolutely be offering that again in the future as soon as we can. But like for many organisations, I think this will really change the way that what we can offer students. So students who, for whatever reason, can't get into the office can still be able to access support. So for us, we all moved to working from home. I know some people really don't like it. Dawn, if she's listening, Dawn cannot wait to get back to work. I
actually saw Dawn today. I saw her in passing, but you can gather that with Dawn because of the colour that she is. She's been outside all the time. She's more brown than I've ever seen her. So I can imagine she's been,
Yeah, so Dawn, so there's some people that are just they love that structure of work and going to work. I've actually been quite happy working from home, and certainly going forward there'll be a bit that'll be like, well, can I have a couple of days maybe working from home? I can still do everything that I need to do. And as I say, we were just chatting about the students, you know, so St Andrews is actively and openly encouraging students, expecting students actually to come back to St Andrews, and semester starts on the 14th of September, teaching starts. So there will be a Freshers Week. It might be a virtual Freshers Week starting from the 7th, so be prepared for that. But yeah, so we have still been able to maintain all of our services online, which has been amazing, and we've been supporting students all over the world.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's been really cool, and we've been able to manage the time zones because people have been able to work more flexibly because they're working from home. So that's actually worked really well.
In your opinion, Jo, are you busier now because of the current situation, or just the same?
It dipped off just after spring break, and then we always get a little busier moving into exam times. And of course, all the exams were done online. So this was a completely new way of working, and students were given time slots to go in and log in and do their exams. So there was a bit of activity around that. But this past week has been exam results week and degree classifications week. So we always get a spike in activity when students get the results. And this is when all the academic information goes out to them for coming back next year as well. So we still seeing students, absolutely, but it definitely tails off a bit at this time of the year. But we are open all summer, and we do support students all through the summertime as well. Those that have maybe had time out and are coming back, we deal with a lot of parent inquiries. So yeah, we're still pretty busy, and we do a lot of development and training work as well over the summer too. So it's a different kind of busy.
Yeah. So obviously as well, there's no graduation week. Now you obviously have a huge part to play in that. So what's the feeling on that?
It's sad. It's just that it should be graduation week this week. So the town is usually jumping. I mean, we're so sad for our students that graduation is such a significant part of your student journey, isn't it? My own daughter, Elise, isn't getting her graduation. This is her final year too. So she's finished her dissertation in lockdown. So I really do feel for those students that it's not being marked in the same way, but it will be. They're being offered to graduate at Christmas. Or I think, don't quote me on this, but I think there's also the option for them to do it next summer if they wish to come back and do it next summer. But it's incredibly sad, and you know, so many aspects, as you know, of everybody's life has been impacted, but it's all that stuff. So students transitioning out and the new ones coming in, it's going to be such a different, who would have thought? Like, none of us could have predicted anything like this. It's bonkers. I just keep thinking, what's going to happen next? We're literally going to get an alien invasion, and it will happen when I'm on call for the bloody university, and it'll happen in St Andrews, and it'll be me that has to bloody deal with it. Keep it. Any minute now, there's going to be flipping Will Smith is going to pop up. And we're going to
honestly, don't. You'll be feeding into the old conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy. I know, it's mad.
Have you done anything, or what? How are you doing? What are you doing for Elise graduating? So obviously she's not going to get it. Have you done something nice for her?
No, she'll be fine.
Is she home just now?
Saved me a bloody fortune. That's what this has done. Saved me a fortune.
Fair.
No, she was home last week for a week. She's back through in Glasgow now, but she'll be coming back and forth over the summer. So yeah, we'll mark it in some way. She wasn't supposed to be graduating until the beginning of July, which is actually quite handy, because if she'd been graduating this week and we'd been doing graduations this week, it might have been a bit touch and go. So we'll do something to mark hers. She's actually still waiting for her results to come out.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for Elise. So yeah. Okay, Jo, let's talk CrossFit. So how did you get into CrossFit all those years ago? Like, how did you stumble across it to start off with?
Well, do you know, I was thinking this. It has been so many years now. And you'd think I'd be a lot fucking better at it, wouldn't you? Given I'd been doing it for so long. So it was actually about 9 years ago, I met Johnny and Graham because they worked at Good Health and Fitness in Dundee. And I know the date because I did my first class at Good Health and Fitness on my birthday 9 years ago. And it was on my birthday, and it was Johnny Crow that took the class. Wee baby Johnny. He couldn't grow a beard, like he had no facial hair. He was very sweet and very shiny. And so I started at Good Health and Fitness. I was really unfit. I hadn't done any training for years and years. I started there, and the guys were doing small boot camp type classes. And I was there for a couple of years. And the other sort of OGs from that time were Mark Ross and Joe Baird, who three of us all trained at Good Health and Fitness. And the guys obviously discovered CrossFit and started talking about this thing called CrossFit, probably towards the end of that 2-year period. And I'd never heard of it, didn't know anything about it, but they started to infuse bits of CrossFit into the boot camp classes that they were coaching at Good Health and Fitness. I was thinking my first experience was of this thing called Cindy. And I didn't know what Cindy was, and didn't know why Johnny was making us do this ridiculous number of reps. It felt completely alien and completely unprofessional, quite frankly, to make us do that many squats and rows and all the rest of it. And I also remember Graham, I don't know how, he got hold of a bunch of broomsticks and had us out on City Quay doing overhead squats with broomsticks. I didn't even know what an overhead squat was, but I was like, what are these guys doing? Like, what is going on? So anyway, then Brown Street happened, and they were doing, deals, membership deals. Come and join us for, a fraction of the price, 20 quid or something, to come and do some CrossFit classes. And I've told you guys before, but I was actively discouraged by other people because I was told that CrossFit was a young man's game, wasn't really for women. It was unsafe. It was dangerous. And it was a flash in the pan. It'll never last, that kind of idea. So I ignored all that advice and I went on to Brown Street anyway. Johnny had invited me to come and have a look at the place before they even opened it, just because I'd got on with Johnny and Graham, and I was supportive. I was a little bit conflicted as well. My loyalties were a bit divided, because I really liked Good Health and Fitness. Is a really great little place. It's a good little gym. But I went along because I'm nosy. And again, just such a different vibe. The fact that they bloody painted that giant Spartan mural and it was all black, and I walked in and they're playing like death metal. So I felt very at home, actually. It was a very different place. So out of curiosity and more out of just a good gesture to the guys, I went along, and the rest, as they say, is history. And I had never picked up a barbell. I didn't know the difference between a deadlift and a snatch. I didn't know what those things meant. But it was just so different. And I think being at the start of anything new is I'm quite privileged in that I was at the start of Dundee and St Andrews. You become part of the fabric of the place. You become part of the environment and the community from the get-go. And I think probably it sounds dead cheesy, but it's really true. There was definitely those young kind of really fit guys. I'm thinking off the top of my head of like Craig Hume, those guys. But there was never once did I feel overlooked or excluded or that I didn't belong. I was absolutely part of that group, regardless of the fact that I felt like, and I still do, a wee fat middle-aged woman. But they didn't make me feel like that at all. It wasn't even a consideration. They might have thought it behind my back, but certainly to my face, it was a very inclusive place. And it was great. It was great fun. Really, really good.
So Jo, when the transition was happening, were you aware, like when Johnny and Graham were obviously still working at Good Health and Fitness and opening, were you aware that it was going on and were you aware that it was happening behind the scenes? Like, were they actively speaking to you about it and like from before they'd ever left, or?
Yeah, they were, and they were probably getting into trouble for it if I'm honest, because they were doing a little bit of speaking about CrossFit, and I remember very clearly of them going down. I think they went down to London, or they went down south somewhere to do their level 1.
Yeah.
I remember them doing that. I remember Johnny telling us that they'd passed and that they were going to get this place in Brown Street, and so they absolutely were. And as I say, they were starting to bring elements of it in. So for example, we didn't have Olympic barbells at Good Health and Fitness. They had those kind of kiddie-on barbells, the ones that are covered in foam, like your paws, like Les Mills ones. And so sometimes we'd do like push press. I don't know that's what it was called at the time, but you do little with your tiny baby plates on the bars. And then Graham took a class where he put loads of weight on the bar. It was probably about 20 kilos. But at the time I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is really irresponsible, Graham. And he was like, now do 50 of those. And so he was starting to increase weight and increase reps and getting us. And we were all very resistant because we were like, this is a bit unusual. I'm used to using my 5K dumbbell, and think I'm, really strong. But yes, they were starting to bring it in at that early stage, and we absolutely knew they were opening another gym, and yeah.
And so then so when you joined, did you go through did you do an on-ramp?
Not really. We just all kind of, to be honest, they didn't even have any training bars. Like if you're a woman, you picked up a 15-kilo bar and got on with it. They hadn't really sussed out the scaling options. They hadn't really sussed out people have never done this before. If there was a box jump, you had to jump on the box. I didn't even mention stepping on the box. You just had to jump on the box. So we were kind of shoved in we weren't kind of like eased in at all at any point. It was like, just get in and get on with it. My claim to fame, I was the first person that came off a box and split my shin open. Johnny, again, funny, he probably wouldn't bat an eyelid now if somebody did that, but at the time he was like, oh my God, it was like health and safety. Johnny was in his element. He was, we need to sand the boxes and make the corners all curved, and so people don't do this. And then of course it happened every day that somebody fell off the box, and that was just like, oh yeah, somebody else is falling off the box. But yeah, no, there was no on-ramp. They started doing stuff like that.
Yeah, because interesting. So I remember having a conversation with Scotty Wilson. So obviously Scotty's a very good friend of yours. But I presume it was probably not long after that that Scotty came along, because Scotty had obviously
Yeah.
been involved at CrossFit Aberdeen and came in to FFD, and I think was very much, guys, you need to stop what you're doing and start doing this.
Yes.
So is
Scotty was.
Is that how you met Scotty?
Yeah, I didn't know Scotty before. We just, you know, and he was right there from the get-go, and we just clicked. We just got on really, really well from the start, and he coached a lot of the techers stuff. So I definitely, absolutely learned so much of the technique from Scotty's classes. He was excellent, and I wish he still did it, and I nag him about it frequently. The other thing that we did that was really, really great fun in the early days was that a Thursday night it was almost like adult playtime. That sounds a bit weird, but Thursday night there was not a fixed class. One week there would be a gymnastic element, and then the following Thursday there would be a barbell element. And it was, you know, Scotty took those Thursday night sessions, and it would be like, we just played. Like, tonight we're going to learn box jumps. You're going to start with a plate, and then you're going to see how high you can jump. Or we're going to get the rings out, and everyone's going to do a skin the cat. Or, you know, or we're all going to do handstands and roly-polies and, you know, hold each other's legs. You know, it was just Thursday nights. That was a really, I think at the time, a really good bonding thing to do, because it meant that we got to know each other. Because otherwise in a class, if you're all new and nobody really, you might, you know, chat a little bit at the beginning and the end. But those Thursday nights, I think, were really key, and Saturday mornings were really key in getting people to chat and have fun. It wasn't as intense. And the Saturday morning things were quite significant as well, actually, because I used to live over in Craigrothy, and I would drive to Dundee, you know, 4 times a week, whatever, 5 times a week, to go to either Good Health and Fitness or to FFD when I joined there. And my own personal little rituals, I'd finish the class on a Saturday, I'd go to Tesco at Riverside and buy a coffee and drive home. It was just a wee thing I did after the gym. And it was one Saturday morning, I just said to some of the girls, do you want to come with me? And that was the start of the, you know, we go for coffee after the gym, we go for brunch after the gym, and it just became a bit of a ritual. And again, that kind of bonding thing happened. That's when we started really getting to know each other. And Scotty Wilson, I mean, Christ, the guy's a fucking bully, that guy. But I could be the other side of the gym. And when I first started doing things like snatch and stuff, my knees, I did the funky chicken.
Okay.
My knees would come in, they would come in and then go out. It was like I was doing, you know, and I could be the other side of the gym. I wouldn't even know Scotty was in the room, and he would scream, "Jo, knees out!" And I'd be like, "Oh, fuck off wherever you are!" Like, you know. So if it was him screaming at me from across the gym about my knees, and and my knees don't come in anymore. They're fixed.
He did his job then, right?
He did his job, bastard.
Yeah, no, I get it. So what was your so like in that initial phase of like CrossFit, like, what was your transformation like in terms of like mentally and physically, like in the first kind of few months of CrossFit?
Yeah, so I mean, huge. And I think that's what I would say to anybody. I don't really bother with it now, but right at the start, when you start CrossFit, as you all know, your gains are crazy. Like, you know, your PBs, your times get quicker. And, you know, the idea of recording everything, and the whiteboard was a big thing. Everybody went over and wrote their score down on the whiteboard. That was a real kind of part of that kind of thing. When because I had, to be honest, I started, and then I had a bit of a health scare, which meant that I wasn't able to train for a couple of months, and it really knocked me. I had to go and get some brain scans done. Long story, won't bore you. Everything was fine. I still have a brain. It wasn't leaking, all good. But when I went back to the gym, I was a bit nervous about that, going back into it, because it was hard. CrossFit's hard, and it was it was really, really hard. But again, it was Johnny and Graham's, and I don't think they realise, maybe you guys do, but that attention, paying attention to people, and taking the time to give positive feedback and to encourage someone to come back and to check in with somebody is huge. Again, I don't want to sound cheesy, but as a woman who had just maybe turned 40, had a bit of a health scare, put on a bit of weight, I speak probably for a lot of people, some body image issues, just having some hang-ups, you know, the usual stuff. So actually the transformation, and I actually give all the credit to you guys as coaches, to take somebody, a woman who's 40, who's never done CrossFit in her life before, who was feeling the way I was feeling, to then be able to quite quickly get me to lifting, you know, 100 kilos off the floor, or to be able to clean and jerk and be able to do a pull-up. You know, these things are huge. And there's not many places that would take the time for somebody like me. It's so much, I look at Jofo there, love this guy, but it's not really hard to coach somebody who is 20, fit and healthy, and is dedicated and motivated. And, you know, the gains for you guys at that age are much, much quicker and easier. Whereas it is perhaps more challenging to, and I'm going to bring Tom into this, to maybe take someone our age who's a little bit older. I love you. So for me, the transformations were, and again, all the while still hearing the voices outside, you're mad. Women shouldn't really be doing that. Why? You're going to get, I've got shoulders that would be the envy of a lot of people, guys probably, but, oh, you're going to get all bulky. Well, fucking hell, I'm bulky anyway. I may as well be strong and bulky, you know? But there was a lot of that negative chat. So for me, it was, you know, those moments where, you know, being able to, one of the biggest achievements was hitting a 40 kilo snatch. That was a number, you know how you have those numbers that are your nemesis. So hitting 40 kilos, poor Graham McCann is money with me because, you know, it took him a long time and not a lot of patience, because he used to scream at me as well as Scotty. But to get me to get to the 40 kilo snatch, he didn't give up. He didn't write me off. So that is huge. That the fact that, again, the likes of Joe and the other young team, I mentioned Craig Hume and Scotty, these are young guys. Why would they want to chat to me? But they all did. You know, it was a very inclusive place. It still is. And you are at your most vulnerable when you are in that gym halfway through a CrossFit workout and you're on your knees, your muffin tops hanging out, you're sweating profusely, you know, you look terrible, you're at your worst, right? And people still want to come and give you a hug afterwards and tell you that you've done a good job. I mean, that is pretty, there's no other place apart from my own home where I would be that vulnerable. It's like Tom's pissing himself laughing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that, you know, the fact that you made me strong.
Yeah. So Josie, how you're talking about like the negativity, like from outside the four walls, how's that changed over time?
Well, look how many people I know come and do CrossFit now.
Well, yeah, you brought us a lot of people.
I tell you, one of them was, so Mark, let's go back to Mark Ross. Mark Ross used to be at Good Health and Fitness. So I joined, drank the Kool-Aid, literally drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, CrossFit's the best thing ever, man. You know, you eat, sleep, breathe it, bought all the gear, still do. And said to Mark Ross, because we were in like a little Friday night crew, me, Joe Baird, Mark, a few of us used to all go to Good Health and Fitness on a Friday night for our workout. And I was like, you've got to come, you've got to come. So eventually, you know, he's a grumpy bastard, Mark Ross, you know, doesn't crack a smile. But he was like, oh,
I
all
really
right,
hope he
all right.
watches this.
Well, I'll tell him to his face. He knows what I think. So I eventually convinced him to come to a Saturday morning walk. I was like, Saturdays are amazing, so much fun, it's great. So Mark turns up on this Saturday morning. What's the workout? Murph.
Oh, no.
Mark Ross has never done CrossFit in his life. There was no on-ramp, you know, straight in. Graham's like, hey, Mark, Johnny, a big warm welcome, because they know him from Good Health and Fitness as well. He walks into Murph, right? So halfway through Murph, I swear to God, if looks could kill, Mark Ross looks across the room at me. He was like, this is fucking bullshit. What the fuck is this? This is not good for people. I mean, he was angry, and he was angry at me, like this was completely my fault that I had And I'm like, I'm really sorry. Not only that, that was my first ever Murph, because it was in the early days. I miscounted. I ended up doing 60 extra squats that day. On top of what we do 300 anyway, I just did an extra. So I was in pain and dying because I'd done extra reps. Mark's like, I genuinely thought he would not come back ever. I didn't think he'd ever speak to me again, and he's still coming to this day. So there you go. That's what everyone should do on their first CrossFit workout. I can't even remember what your question was. But yeah, no, how things changed. I don't think people think it's, I don't know, still some. I mean, powerlifters, obviously, they just have to have a moan. So if I ever meet anybody who's a powerlifter, we'll still slag CrossFit because that's just the law, apparently. But apart from that, I think perceptions of it outside have definitely changed over the years.
Yeah.
So music.
Say again?
So's the music.
Has it moved away from the old death metal?
It used to be hard, heavy metal, loud music, every single workout. I mean, never in a million years. I still can't get over sometimes when the Spice Girls or the Venga Boys come on. It hurts my soul a little bit. That's a bit of a sellout. I'm sorry. It should still be hard and heavy, but that's my own.
Us new school CrossFitters are into Daka Dak, the old German techno.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the music's very important. It can make or break the workout.
You're right though. Music can make or break your workout.
Mm-hmm.
Can absolutely break your workout. So we've kind of covered the early days, Jo. So then, how did things grow? Like, so obviously you were in the business from like a really early door. So like, how did you see it grow, like from your perspective, like as a member?
Well, I mean, massively. I remember, again, probably my first ever Saturday WOD. I turned up at FFT and I was the only person there on a Saturday morning. It was me and Jamesy. James coached me. It was a workout called Batman, and I beat Johnny Crow's score because there was only Johnny Crow's score on the whiteboard because nobody else had done it. And James
Johnny Crow at workout? I can't imagine that.
So yeah, of course it's massively grown, and then you fast forward a few years to now or to Saturday morning workouts where you've got, or the Sunday Metcons, we've got 20-30 people. I mean, it just massively grew. And I think the interesting thing was the demographic, because I think Tony and Graham thought very much that Dundee would be very much student gym, and that's kind of what they were aiming for, was that student population. But what happened was you got a whole bunch of professional people. You had police, doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, a whole bunch of professionals. And so the demographic, the people that were coming, and that's also what I think made me think, well, this is okay. If you've got the likes of Vicky Cherry, who's an orthopedic surgeon, and you've got the guy who's an anaesthetist from Ninewells, and you've got Dr. Mike, who is an A&E guy. If you've got all these medical people, Lindsay Daly, she's a cardiographer. You've got all of the Debbie, police officer, Amanda Ayton, lawyer. You've got all these really intelligent, clued up people that are saying this is great. But not only that, it's all people with really stressful jobs. So a lot of us, without doubt, are doing this, I think, to manage our mental health and stress as well. And I think everybody's been pretty open with that. That it gives you a huge boost. The endorphin rush after a good CrossFit workout is like no other. So that really grew, and I think it was great. There was a huge range of ages and people, and there were obviously the student element in it, but it was really great that it was a bunch of again, really switched on people. And
then St Andrews came along.
Yeah. So
you obviously, St Andrews made sense for you logistically because obviously you're working in St Andrews. So from St Andrews opening, like what was it like from being like part of the bricks and mortar of FFD and then essentially stepping into this brand new place? Like what was that like?
Well, obviously they opened St Andrews purely for my convenience.
Naturally.
You know, that's what I thought, because I was driving this terrible commute all these years back and forth from bloody Dundee. I could do it with my eyes shut. And then they opened a gym that's a 4-minute drive from my office. So I am still convinced that they opened the gym just for me as a thank you. So I was obviously highly delighted. A little bit, I was like, oh, how is this going to feel, you know, going from one to the other? But then, you know, they had Sam. And, you know, very quickly, you know, after that, then you guys all started joining, and it was an easy transition. It felt just an extension of FFD. Different cultures for sure. And FFD has had, you know, a bumpy ride, as any new business does. It had, you know, amazing moments, but it also went through some difficulties, as any young business does. So opening of St Andrews was a bold move for the guys. I think it was the right thing for them to do. I think it was a great idea. And again, it's a different place, but I think it's got those core elements that we've, you know, touched on about the community and inclusivity and all of that kind of stuff.
Had you had the opportunity to meet and like be coached by Sam, like in that like transition phase? So obviously the property came around like October, November, and Sam was kicking around in Dundee. So did you have the opportunity to meet him and be coached by him before?
Not really coached beforehand, but I was introduced to him, and Graham kind of made a point of saying that this is Jo. She's been with us for a while. She'll probably be joining you over in St Andrews. And so right from the early, you know, again, from them opening the gym, I was kind of floating around. So was Sam, but didn't really get coached by him until, because the other person, of course, was Tom. So I knew Tom, well, both Toms, but Tom.
Hobson.
No, well, he was in my hall.
So Stanley. Tom
Stanley. His name just escaped me for a second. So Tom Stanley, I knew from FFD. So he was there right at the beginning as well. So him and I were kind of pally from before. So yeah, I met Sam prior to the gym opening, and obviously was in the early classes with him right from the get-go.
You say Tom Stanley. What's your favourite memory of Tom Stanley?
My favourite memory, easy. So we were in FFD, we were doing Karen, which is 150 wall balls, right? And quite often in FFD, we did a lot of partner balls where you'd count each other's reps. So we were not together as in a partnership, but both our partners were doing the 150 wall balls, and we had to count. And of course, again, it was probably one of the first times we'd done it, and it's 150 wall balls. How do you cheer someone on? Because it's shit. And I actually love Karen. It's one of my favourite workouts. So Tom Stanley is next to me, and he's obviously just counting under his breath, not cheering his partner on at all, just because that would be not cool. And I'm like, oh, come on, yay, okay, you've done 50. And he's like, that's not very fucking helpful. She's 100 to do. Like, he just totally ripped at me because I was going, yay, well done, 50 down. And he's like, yeah, fuck's sake. And he just completely ripped into me for being the worst cheerleader ever. Yes, I've never known a man with such a great turn of phrase. Yeah. So pretty funny.
My favourite moment of Tom Stanley, the most rogue person to ever get a level 1 in his life. But once he got let loose on the coaching floor, like, oh my word. I remember him describing, he had a group doing squats to a medicine ball, and the description was, sit to the medicine ball, kiss it like you would kiss your gran, not like you would kiss your girlfriend. And then there was many others which I can't repeat.
So many. I can't even remember. Something about a fairy. There was definitely something, you used a description about a fairy, but it sounded furry because of his accent. I can't remember. There were so many, like, yeah, metaphors that you're just like, did you make that up? Like, yeah. Where is your brain at? So ridiculous. Funny. He's an absolute class. Very, yeah. Very funny.
And then when you start training St Andrews and such, like, you still went between the two places every so often, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, like, you were obviously talking about like difference in cultures. Like what were the differences?
I think, well, certainly at that time, I think because Dundee had been going for that bit longer, people were perhaps just had a little bit more experience. Excuse me. So there was maybe this perception that it was more competitive at Dundee, or that because people had done more competitions, because it had been open longer. So there was I guess this perception was very much that the FFD, where they're all a bit scary and a bit, you know, whereas St Andrews was still quite new in finding its feet. And so yeah, there was definitely that kind of culture difference. So I did try and successfully sometimes get some of the FFD lot to come over for a Saturday morning workout. You know, Debs would come over, or some of the crew would come over. I think Team Wars was absolutely fundamental in actually bridging that gap, literally bridging the gap. Because I mean, that's it, any new gym, you know, the people are not going to have the same level of skill unless they've done CrossFit before, but FFD just had that slightly that edge, I think, and it had been around a lot. And again, the style of coaching was maybe a bit different. Dundee had I think it's safe to say, a few issues around that time with its structure and the coaching personalities and things like that. And Dundee, St Andrews was all new and shiny, and Sam's just a very different person, and brought a very different element to it. And I think the coaches can certainly dictate the dynamic, and it wasn't a secret that Sam wasn't that competitive. Like, he wasn't really into the competitive side, whereas in the early days at FFD, you know, you had all the fire breathers, you know, Graham and Craig, and, you know, all the guys were wanting to go and compete. So there was a culture of that over there, I think. Do you think that's fair to say? I mean, you were...
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so like certainly you'd be hard drawn to have picked a coach in FFD that wasn't a CrossFit competitor. But like I said, like I think the culture of like being competitive, I think it was just that there was more hours spent doing CrossFit, so you could be forgiven of walking into FFD and feeling intimidated, because like everyone, you kind of walked in and everyone knew what they were doing, because they'd just been, like you say, they'd just been doing it longer. Where in St Andrews, like certainly for the first like year, you'd be hard pushed to have a class where you didn't have a new person in it. So it was all very much like very forgiving, and it's like you're teaching everything like it's brand new. So it's like, and that creates and it needed to have a very, very different atmosphere. So yeah, but no. So at what stage? Because you've done a bit of competitive CrossFit yourself. So at what stage did that start?
It actually started quite early on. I think I shared a post even on Facebook or Instagram not so long ago. Thorium's, so there was a box in the Northeast that did some online competition. So my first one was an online competition. You didn't even actually have to qualify. Everyone submitted their scores, and I did that with one of the other women in the gym. Got a bit of a buzz out of that, because again, it was very much supported and encouraged, and again, even the fact that we were maybe in the scaled division or whatever of that, everyone was like, yeah, competition qualifier, yeah, well, we'll judge you. You know, everyone was very supportive of us, you know, doing that. And then did a competition. It was the first, you know, those guys from ULT, the Scottish.
So the SFFC.
Yeah, so the very first one that they did, there was quite a lot of us put teams in. That was me and Mrs. B, Lee Brown. That was our first. So you know, Joe Baird and Paula won our division, so we had to bookend it by coming last. And so that was my first experience. I vowed I would never do it again. Hated it. Didn't like coming last. I don't care what anybody says. You don't enter a competition to come last, but you have to fucking suck it up. And we did, and we had good humor about it, but it's tough. it's really hard being on show like that, because you've got no idea. I had no idea. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. So, and the bit that we probably would have, because I don't know if you heard about that year, they had it in this big sports hall, and the floors weren't set up or suitable for heavy barbells being dropped on them.
Oh, and they put
So
one of that clean and jerk in.
Yeah, it smashed the floor to bits. Apparently cost thousands of pounds worth of damage. And this was in the guys section. The guys went first. So when it came to the women doing like a max clean and jerk or whatever, a max snatch, which was, I was like, that was the bit I was excited about, because we might have got a few fucking points if I'd been able to lift a heavy weight. They said, oh, the women were going to scrap it because we're breaking the floor, like the floor's fucked. So they scrapped the best bit, for as far as I'm concerned. That was my first competition, vowed never to do it again, and then went on to maybe a year or so later do my first individual masters competition. And that was the one down in Reading, and I got a podium, and that was one of my personal highlights,
Nice.
because that was a real personal achievement, and I was in in an environment with other people my age, because again, it's pretty tough sometimes going up against all you 20-year-olds sometimes, isn't it, Tom? Like, he's swearing, I can lip read. I'm sure he's saying fuck yeah. Because it's tough. So being in a competition with peers, women my age, and actually, and I'll never forget that day either, because we didn't, you never go into a competition expecting it. You just don't want to come last. That's what everyone says, like, mission, don't come last. And on the second workout, I thought I was going to die. I had the whole breakdown, tears. My brother, who doesn't do CrossFit, came with me. He was the only person with me. He didn't know what to do with me. He'd never seen his sister A, do CrossFit, B, nearly throw up, cry, everything all at the same time. It was awful. And I didn't even look at the leaderboard, because I was like, I've come last again, I'm just going to go home. Looked at the leaderboard, and I took second place in that workout. And I was so shocked that I screenshotted it and sent it to Graham. So, look, what's fucking happened? And he was like, fuck off. And I was like, thanks a lot, pal. He was like,
classic Graham McCann response that.
Coach. So I went on to get third place there. So competitions, of course, that boosted me again. That was great. And since then, I've done a few. I think it's good to have a goal, and it's good again that there's more masters competitions. I'm a real champion of the masters. I don't know, you guys won't fully appreciate this until you hit this age, and you realize that actually getting people of this age to do this crazy shit, like, we must be this tiny percentage of the population that can actually do this stuff. So getting us all together is brilliant banter, because we all think we're hilarious, because we make jokes about not weeing and minding our knees and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely love a masters competition, and I think you should celebrate us more. But you are, because you've asked us to do this, and I think that's amazing. But yeah, some of these people, they're incredible. So yeah, competition, I think, is good. It pushes you out of your comfort zone, really fucking hard and horrible. And I always vow I'm never going to do it, and then I probably will.
I can imagine the vibe at a masters competition is so friendly, like, compared to like what we go through.
Yeah.
I think it's very much like, in a RX male competition, like, you still have, I honestly think that 50% of them at some stage believe they're going to go to the CrossFit Games.
Yes.
And it's like, right, chill out. Like,
yeah.
This is not, and it's that thing of, this is not life or death. Yeah. Whereas, like, at the masters competition, like, when it goes 3, 2, 1, go, everyone takes it seriously. But like until then, and then as soon as it's done, everyone just goes back to being like a normal human being.
Totally. I really want you to come to a masters competition with us, one of these. You should come with the old birds when we get on our age concerned bus. You should come with us, because the banter is fucking brilliant. I swear to God, did I show you that photo? I went to the one in Brighton last year, one of my most favorite. That's the one I got spirit of the games kind of award. Just because I didn't stop laughing all day, even mid-workout, I was laughing because it was so funny. But yeah, we absolutely went for it. I mean, we were not mucking about, but this woman rocks up. You know, I've got my flipping Flying Fox backpack. I've got all the gear and no idea. This woman turns up with her shopping trolley, like their fucking shopping trolley with all her stuff in it. And I'm like, that's genius. Like, she's got so much space in there and it's got wheels. She's wheeled it up. She's got snacks. She's got everything you need. Honestly, so funny. Best thing ever. But there was some absolute badasses there. You know, some of these people are just fantastic. And I can, obviously that age category is going to be increasing because people like me are just going to keep doing CrossFit and those categories are going to increase. So yeah, there's a lot of, and you're right. I love going to the all inclusive competitions. I love being a supporter. I mean, how enthusiastic do I get when I go to a competition? And
very.
I love cheerleading everybody. But you're right. Some folk, you're like, oh, put your ego away just now. Come on now. You're not going to the games. But I think actually going to SID down in Bristol was probably a good leveler of people, because they're all puffed up and then you see flipping Vellner and Hovarth do their thing, and that puts it into perspective a wee bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think particularly a lot of people in the UK scene, that's probably one of the best things that I've literally ever seen. And I think the point in which it is at its worst is like a warm-up area. And obviously people behave like very, very differently in a warm-up area. Like, so for example, like I'm quite, like, you know me, I'm quite chill, quite relaxed. So I'll go up and I'll speak to people that I'm competing against, and some people, the reaction's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, go away. And some people are like, the headphones in, head down, and it's like, this is not the CrossFit Games, and this is not the final of the CrossFit Games. So like, please just chill out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, we all get there. We all get our knickers in a twist, and we all have our moments, and we all have the meltdowns. You know, there's a lot of emotions going on. It's an adrenaline fueled, you know, hormonal fueled journey. But again, you still need to laugh at the end of it and support. I love it when people go up and congratulate each other either before or after a workout. That kind of sportsmanship, I think, is really, really important, whatever sport you're doing. But I think I really like seeing that when people do still remember to cheer each other on, and I really like seeing that.
It's very much like an integral of what we do as well. Like, that's something that like we always expect, like at the end of class and stuff, and it just shows that like you're never too big for that.
Yeah. And I think that goes right back to what we're saying about the beginning, about how I felt, again, being an older woman walking into a situation like that. I remember one of my very, very early workouts. It was a huge team workout at FFD, and it was split, it was two big teams. And I happened to be, just by fluke, I was the only woman on a team full of all the guys. And again, it was all the young guys like you and Jo, but you weren't there. It was, those guys. And I was shitting myself all the way through this workout thinking, I'm going to be the one that slows everybody down. I'm going to be the one that's, last. They're all going to get really pissed off with me because they just want to get a good workout. And there's always those feelings. And I think, Tom, you probably relate to me on this one. When you get partnered with somebody good and you think, and I remember that workout at the end, I think I was the last one to go, and I had to do some ridiculous number of burpees, and we all know how I feel about a burpee. Do you know what? Every single one of those guys got down and did every burpee with me. And not out of any kind of like pity. It was just like we're a team and we're all going to do it. And at the end, it was like I was the, we did it. And it was amazing. That, I think, is so important. And that kind of, you just jump in, you work with each other, you help each other, and that should be fostered, absolutely. If anyone doesn't do that, I think, that's not our culture in FFD and FFSA. Absolutely.
So I don't want to touch on this too long, but what's the training like in the current situation?
I'm not very good at Zoom. And this is why I love CrossFit, because I like being in a gym with all you guys. I miss it terribly. I have tried. I've kept active. I've been doing yoga. I've been doing loads of walking. I've done a few classes. I've had some PT in Graham's Garden, which has been good this past couple of weeks. But I am so sick of that fucking dumbbell. I'm sorry, it's going in the river when this is all over. I want a barbell back. I even miss the assault bike. I was looking back at videos the other day, and do you remember when you were doing PT with me and we were in the other room with the wee tower rig and I was doing lovely toaster bar? I've got a wee video of that. I was looking at that fondly with a tear in my eye. Like, I want to do a toaster bar. I hate this shit. Come on, Nicola, get us open.
And so interestingly, Jo, right? So how does your body feel? Like, so compared to like training normally, like, and how obviously you've had like a lengthy break, like how does your body feel?
Okay, so on one hand, my hands are lovely, baby soft. There's no nasty calluses. I have skin on them. It's quite a novelty, right? On the other hand, I'm not as sore. I mean, my permanent state of being over the last, 7 years has been something hurts all the time. But the first session I did with Graham in his garden 2 weeks ago, honest to God, it was like somebody had given me a jolt of speed. Not that I would ever know what that was like, because I've never done a Class A drug ever. But that's what it felt like, that I had this massive endorphin rush that I have not had the whole time. So I miss it. My body misses it.
What do you think that you'll change the way you train slightly because of it, or will it just be back to normal? Or
I don't know. My hope is that I get back to it, and I want to get back to it more than what I was before. Well, actually, just before I'd picked up things again, I'd been doing PT again, and I'd picked up the pace again, because I had 2 competitions meant for this summer. I was meant to be doing 2 masters comps this summer, which obviously have both been cancelled. So that was my goal again. My summer times are easier for me to train because it's a bit quieter. So I was kind of on that sort of, right, I'm coming into the summer, here we go. But what I have also learned is that I've walked more. I've done more of that other stuff outside the gym, which I think I would also like to maintain as well. I've done a lot of yoga, which I never did before, and that has been invaluable. And I really think I've noticed the benefits of doing more yoga, so more mobility to complement the training. But I just can't wait to get back and to get back moving again. And but yeah, I also think the challenges have been fantastic, and I wonder if there's ways that maybe throw that question back to you. Do you think there'll be changes in the way that you coach, and will you keep offering an online offering to people that maybe can't get into the gym and maybe can continue with some of these challenges?
Yeah, so to answer that like fairly shortly, to pretty much all of the above, I would say. The online platform is something that we haven't really touched. But yeah, certainly this has made us realize that it's absolutely possible in whatever way, shape or form we think best suits. The challenges are here to stay. Probably not as frequently. So obviously we've kind of done one every other week, but certainly yes. You'll actually get an email about this in the next few days, is that one of the things that's been like, or that we've felt like gone really well, is obviously having that accountability with said coach.
Yeah.
So we're thinking that that's something that's we're just gonna roll that and work seamlessly in. Now obviously we've obviously at our end had a lot of time to do that. So it's just like getting a consistent way of being able to implement that we can still deliver this great bit of accountability, but on a bigger platform. So once the membership is back to normal, plus we're all coaching and PTing again as normal. But yeah, to sum it up, to all of the above. We've been busy. Like we've been busy in the last 12 weeks, assessing essentially what we can do better. So it'll be it's looking exciting. So we're keen to get back in to show you all how we've been working over the last 12 weeks and stuff. So
I think that's great. I think there's definitely, I know a lot of people have actually really enjoyed the Zoom things. Just personally, I've found it a bit of a struggle. But I think if it's another option that you can offer to people, who maybe can't get in and who have realized that they do think it works. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's like we're going to continue to offer online support to our students that can't physically get in. You know, we've got the technology. Even if you had it on while you were running a real class, it wouldn't probably put you out very much, would it? I'm sure there's ways that you could do it simultaneously. And yeah, I think the groups, the WhatsApp groups have definitely kept me motivated, kept me engaged. I think if that hadn't have been there, I'd have drifted. I mean, I'd have come back because, you know, you've got me forever, unfortunately. But I would have definitely drifted these past few months.
Yeah. So, no, these are things that are definitely here to stay. Okay. Let's plug coffee and coaching. So coffee and coaching is your
coaching and coffee. It's the other way around, but it's okay.
So coaching
it's
and
all right.
Coffee.
The two elements are there, Fraser. Don't worry.
Coffee and coaching.
Coaching and the coaching is first.
Coaching's first.
Fraser. Yeah.
So do you know why that is, right? It's just because I love coffee so much.
Me too. And I wanted it to be first, but somebody got there before me. Somebody has got a company called Coffee and Coaching. Fuckers.
Okay.
They're in like somewhere in Europe, so they're not in the UK. But I had to go for Coaching and Coffee because somebody had already pinched the name.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more now. Like I'm going to let you talk because obviously I've spoken to you lots about all sorts of things. So I'll let you have the opportunity to tell the people a little bit about it, and then we'll have a little chat about it.
Sure. Well, just really, really quickly. So obviously I've got a full-time job. So the Coaching and Coffee is just my little side. It's not even a side hustle. It's just something that I really enjoy doing. So I as well as doing my work at the uni, I'm a qualified life coach. I've got a postgraduate diploma in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology. So I'm a positive psychology coach, and I absolutely love it. I think everybody could probably use life coaching, me included, because it's just an opportunity to have a structured conversation and allow you the space and to allow you a bit of time to work through your own stuff. And we can do that with friends and family, but our friends and family have got like emotional investment. They've got sometimes their own agenda about what we're doing, rightly or wrongly, and oftentimes it comes from a good place. But speaking to someone who's a bit more impartial and who's on your side and is your cheerleader, but who's also impartial in terms of your decision-making process, I think can be really, really valuable. So coaching is not counseling. A lot of people get the two things muddled up. In a nutshell, counseling is more about dealing perhaps with trauma and crisis and mental health issues, perhaps something that's happened in the past that's stopping you from kind of moving forward. Whereas coaching is something that you are looking forward. We're talking about how you are in you're a whole person, you're functioning, you're motivated, and you're looking to move forward. And it could be about anything. You could be wanting to improve your well-being and your fitness. You might want to be looking at your career. You might be wanting to look at relationships and with colleagues or with partners or your family. As I say, you might just be looking at work-life balance. There could be anything, and it's just about giving you a bit of time to figure out where you are now and where it is you want to go. And oftentimes, you know, we kind of bumble through life. I mean, and I think for many people, this kind of pandemic has maybe given us all a bit of cause to pause and reflect a little bit. But it's not very often in life we get that chance because we're on the treadmill. We're constantly going through, you get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat your dinner, you go to bed, repeat over and over again. You might get a couple of weeks where you go on holiday once a year, but you might not be, depressed or stressed or anxious necessarily, but you might not be thriving and flourishing. You might just be ticking along. So sometimes you might get to the point where you think, it'd be really good. I want to enter a competition, or I want to mix things up. I want to change my job. And having someone to sit with you in a coaching conversation can just help you take that abstract idea. I always talk about taking the abstract and making it into action. So you change the abstract into an action point. How are you actually going to get to this goal? So in a nutshell, what do I do in a coaching session? Because sometimes people think it's a bit of a mystery. I will meet the person. Usually the one coaching session maybe lasts anything from an hour to 2 hours in that initial conversation. I have usually asked them to complete a really small survey to try and identify their strengths, because I believe that everybody has already got some amazing strengths upon which to build, but we often don't even recognize what our own strengths are. So how are we supposed to utilize these, what we call our neurological superpowers, because we've already got them? How do we utilize our strengths to get us to where we want to be? So I'll ask people to do a strengths questionnaire, and then we have a chat about what their goals are, where they want to go, and we take really small action steps. I will quite often ask people, because I'm into positive psychology, and we don't have time to go into what that means, but rather than looking at what's wrong in your life and saying, well, what's wrong with you? What do you want to fix? I will be asking, what's going well? What do you want to develop? What do you want to grow? What do you want to see more of in your life? Let's flip the question from a deficit to what's positive. So once we kind of have that as a building block, it's a much more positive standpoint to work from. And that's not to say that we don't talk about weaknesses, and we don't talk about challenges, and we don't talk about struggles, but we don't make that always the focus of the conversation. We're actually saying, you've already got all these brilliant skills, strengths, values. How do we utilize them to get you where you want to go? So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what coaching is. For some people, a one-off session is all they need. They come along, they have a couple of hours with me, and it's just an opportunity for them to, they've probably already made the decision about what it is they want to do. They just need a bit of validation and a bit of support about how to take that next step, right? For some people, they might want several coaching sessions because there's lots going on for them. There's all sorts of different issues, and they want to kind of navigate through that. Usually you would have a session, and then you wouldn't have a follow-up session for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, because again, coaching is very much about you taking action, and I will quite often give homework, or together we will figure out what your action points are going to be. It's a collaboration, but you need to go away and do the work, right? I'm not going to do it for you, and there's no magic wand situation. You need to be motivated to go away and put those things into action. So you would maybe have sessions sort of monthly, and that can be maybe 6 months worth of doing that work, because these things don't kind of happen instantly. So we talk a lot about forming good habits. We talk a lot about lots of interventions that you can do to boost. I'm very interested in people's well-being and their happiness levels. We want to kind of make you get you to a point where you're functioning at your best and you're flourishing. You're not just ticking along. So I talk a lot about that. The stuff that I do is evidence-based. There's a lot of, and I'm sure in coaching, there's a lot of transferable things between what you do, guys, Jo and Fraser. Somebody might come to you with a goal, and you can give them lots of different strategies, but they have to go away and do the accessory work or do the work. There's also a lot of people out there that call themselves coaches that aren't coaches. So the stuff I do is all very evidence-based. It's based in research, it's based in science. And I prefer that way of working. I really like working to something that's got a research base behind it. And increasingly, I guess you guys are finding that was research about CrossFit coming out your ears these days, which is great. So, that kind of adds a bit of validation to what you're doing. So sorry, I feel like I've waffled at you for ages.
No, that's cool. So it's interesting you said there about the evidence base. So obviously, the last time, so I can talk about my own experience here. So the last time I came to see you, I was very much on a struggle with balance. I felt like I had so much going on, and felt like I was spinning so many plates, and not feeling really much reward from it. And then by the time I walked away, we'd written down a bunch of stuff, and I actually sat and I looked at it and I was like, right, I can go away and I can work with that and make it better. And I think certainly from when I last spoke to you to coming off for COVID, I was in a much better place. And then, like you're saying, like being in COVID has allowed a lot of time to actually just pause the brakes and set and plan. But also, you probably didn't realize at the time, but you made me think about like what better habits I could have. So just like little things like daily lists of things that I need to be doing, and setting out some goals like over like different periods and stuff, like which actually you don't really realize, but now I sit and think like those little nuggets were absolutely invaluable. And I think like, that's why when we shared your business on Facebook, I think like Graham and I both jumped on to say like your knowledge and wisdom was invaluable. So I can say thanks for that now. But
thank you. Do you know, you guys do all the work. I've had the absolute, honestly, privilege of working with a number of the coaches from the gym, and it's a passion project for me. I love coaching. One of my strengths is curiosity and creativity, right? We've all got these strengths, and that this kind of work really plays to my strengths. I love talking to people and helping them to figure stuff out, because you do all the work, and I have loved doing the coaching with the coaches because I'm so invested in, I want the businesses to go well. I want you guys to succeed purely for selfish reasons, because I want the gym to do well so I can keep coming to it. So of course I'm going to help you and coach you if I can, but you guys are doing all the work, and that's the thing, it's that following through with it. And there'll be a lot of stuff that I might suggest in coaching, and I always say to people, you know, take what's good, discard what doesn't work for you. And in the same way, you know, you can tell somebody to, you know, like Scotty Wilson, get your knees out. If that cue doesn't work, you need to find another cue. As a coach, you need to find another cue for that person for it to go in, right? So some cues are going to work, some cues aren't. And you know, that's what it comes down to, and you taking the bits that are going to work for you and sticking with that and using that. So I'm delighted to hear that you found it helpful, because it'd be rubbish if you said, well, that was a load of shite. So, so I'm really glad.
I think if it had been a load of shite, I probably wouldn't have asked you to come on here. So, no.
So no, I love it. I really do. And as I say, I'm not sort of touting for business. I do have a full-time job, but I genuinely, I take on maybe one or two private coaches, and it's usually through word of mouth. I've got a Facebook page and I've got an Instagram page, and if people are interested, I am delighted to speak to people and do an initial conversation. Because the other thing, and you guys will know this as well, there's got to be a fit in terms of personality. You know, you've got to be able to trust that person, and that goes both ways. You know, if you meet somebody and you think, I can't coach this person for whatever reason, rightly or wrongly, or they meet you and think, nah, it's not quite what I'm looking for, that's okay. Because that relationship is the most important part of this whole process, is there has to be trust, and you have to kind of agree that you're going to work together. As I say, it's a collaboration, you know. So
yes. I saw Liam and Mel earlier on, and actually we were having a kind of similar conversation. But I've said this to numerous of our coaches, and I say all the time, but as much as we are like the fitness industry, we're more the relationship business than anything else. Like if you've got a good relationship with people, you're going to be like successful. But not all relationships like are designed to be like that. But generally, if your relationship's good, like you're in a much better position.
Well, it's like goes right back to what I said at the very beginning about being vulnerable, right? You know, when I walk into that gym, if Johnny and Graham right at the very beginning hadn't made me feel like I could trust them and that I could be vulnerable in front of them, I would have walked out the door, right? You know, the fact that I did PT with Graham, this is one of the most humiliating experiences ever. When I first did my first PT session with Graham, he probably doesn't realize this, but he got me to lift like it was a clean and jerk or something, and he filmed it in fucking slow-mo, right? That should be banned for a start, right? Then he played it back to me, to show me my lift. Was I looking at my lift? No, I was looking at the ripples of wobbly bits going. It was horrendous. I don't think Graham saw that, but that's all I saw. He was talking about my lift. All I was like was, is that what I look like when I'm lifting? I am fucking traumatized. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. But he didn't make me feel, again, sorry, Tom, was this TMI? Am I oversharing? I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
And then there was one day he got me to do a pull-up, and he's actually holding me on the, and I'm like, get off me, like, stop touching me, like, get your hands off me. Because again, all those insecurities and self-conscious. Now, when you're opening up to somebody and being vulnerable emotionally and saying, I'm struggling with something, you don't want me, you know, you need your coach to trust you and you to trust them. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So it's the same thing, that trusting relationship when you are being really, really vulnerable with another person is absolutely key. So if I've got any bit of advice to anybody, again, it's like, remember that. You might not be seeing it, but I was feeling those things, right? And the other thing is, be genuine. Like, if you don't know something, don't pretend to fucking know it. If somebody comes to me with an issue and I'm like, not sure, I'll say, this is a new one on me, but let's figure it out together, right? I've maybe not come across that. Being genuine is the single most important thing in any kind of, I think, relationship. You know, coming at it from, don't pretend you know if you don't, be honest, and that comes through. So whether that's your type of coaching, my type of coaching, or any relationship you have with somebody, bear in mind the other person might be feeling really fucking vulnerable. Don't use slow motion with middle-aged women. Don't flip in, shove them up onto a bar and try and make them do a pull-up. It's awful.
That's right.
I mean, maybe Graham was traumatized, but he hid it well. I mean, he might have been thinking, oh, fuck.
The old blue steel comes on.
Exactly. It's like, don't blink. Don't give eye contact. It will be fine.
Yeah. Right, Jo. At the end of these, I do a little quick fire. There's just 5 where you essentially get a sentence or 2 to answer. Some of them are yes or no's. So yeah. Number 1. What's your favorite coffee house?
Taste.
Good answer. Good answer. With your coffee, a muffin or a cookie?
Cookie.
What kind of cookie?
Okay, well, we're from Pret. I really like the one with the pecans. You know, is it toffee and pecan?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm well rehearsed in the Pret a Manger cookie range.
Hashtag Pret.
Okay. What's the most outstanding piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow. In relating to CrossFit?
Anything you like.
Oh God, that's so hard. Can I come back to that question? I need a minute. It's probably something, my dad's really, really wise, and now just because you've asked me that question, everything has gone out of my head.
I'll ask the last 2 and then I'll come back. Would you rather cycle a light barbell or shift a heavy barbell?
Oh, that's too hard. Both. Come on now. I love cycling a barbell, but give me a heavy barbell. Definitely heavy singles.
What's the worst workout you've ever done?
15 point, the one with the thrusters. It's also Matt Fraser's worst. It's the only thing me and Matt Fraser have got in common. The one where you had to row and do thrusters, 15 point.
15.5.
I actually, absolute worst workout I've ever done. And I actually was in the fetal position in the fridge because I did it at FFT in tears.
Wow.
It's horrific.
Bring back 15.5, 21.5.
Horrific.
15.5. Heard it here first.
It's awful.
Okay. Yeah, any advance on your most outstanding piece of advice?
If you can't blind them with science, baffle them with bullshit, which just goes completely contradicts what I've just said.
That's fine. Totally fine. Awesome. Brilliant, Jo.
Oh.
Jo, thanks so much. Is there anything else that you want to shamelessly plug while you're on here?
No, absolutely not. Except, just, well, I've got all the love for you guys, and yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Let's get open. And if anyone's got any questions, has anyone got any? Sorry, I feel like the poor people that joined in, I've just sat and waffled at you for an hour and a half. But if anyone's got anything to ask or add or say, I'm happy to hear feedback. Tom Savage, you're very quiet. It's not like you.
No, awesome.
Cool. No, thank you guys. It was really nice to chat. I feel it was good to see you all. Thank you for coming and listening to an old bird waffle on.
No, it was cool. Always cool. Always nice to chat to you, Jo. Right, I'm going to stop recording, Jo.